How do you do? We're about to unfold the story of Frankenstein. He's one of the strangest tales ever told. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. Well, we've warned you.
You have been warned, and welcome back to... Let's start over, sorry. You have been warned. Welcome back to Frankenstein Minute, the podcast where we dissect the Universal Frankenstein films minute by minute. I'm Bill Evenson.
And I'm Tom Lang, and we are at minute 33 of Universal's 1931 Frankenstein. Previous minute, we finally saw who plays the monster. It's our beloved Boris Karloff.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say John Carradine.
John Carradine. Now, there was rumor he claims that he was...
Yeah. It could be.
It could be. It's possible.
It just doesn't seem like there was a lot of people
vying for the role. Yeah.
I guess it was a big deal. It just was a big deal for such a short period of time, like we talked about.
Yeah, it was such a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Dracula, which had a really long lead up.
Right, well, that's true. Yeah. Maybe he was in the commissary that day.
He was sitting
Boris Karloff.
The table behind him, and well, if it had looked a little further.
Oh, man. He would have been,
He would have been fine, yeah.
I think he would have been better than what we do end up with.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I don't really care for... Well, who knows?
We'll see.
Anyway, so the monster sat down.
Yes.
And he turns Henry turns to Waldman and says, "It understands."
It understands.
Yeah.
Previously,
you got me there.
He's been referring to him as he.
Right. This is where my theory falls apart. I confess. Yeah,
okay.
Now that I think about it, you're right. But he is talking to Waldman, so I don't know. But he was talking to Waldman before.
He was talking to Waldman before, yeah. So I don't know what made the change, and I think it's just inconsistency in the script.
I suppose you're right, and I think in this case though, it has to be something like that because it's not like he doesn't. It's not like he's just saying he's just mixing up pronouns. He says you'd understand because he's now got the monster doing tricks.
Yeah, basically.
He's not acting like this is
young
a person
Frankenstein
in any way.
Gives him the little treat.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see any difference to that.
Mm-mm.
And I think it also shows that Henry completely is missing the point again.
Yeah.
Like, this is what he's excited about. Like, Waldman doesn't care if he can do tricks.
Right.
He's never been
it was never been his concern.
Right. He never said, I'm really concerned that your monster won't be able to
understand and when you
yeah.
say sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the point at all.
No, I think Waldman is looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
As he should be, as Henry should be, but is not. Was this right to do in the first place? Mm-hmm. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
You're in this. He kept him in complete darkness for days.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
No. And last minute he referred to, or maybe it was not last minute, I'm sorry, over the last 3 or 4 minutes, when they're having that conversation around the table.
Yeah.
He talks about continuing his experiments.
Got to experiment further.
This is still an experiment.
He's only a few days old. Yes.
Unlike what you've said about the book. This is the exact opposite of that. We've just started.
This is the beginning.
I'm going to have him sit down.
He's going to be singing.
Great.
He's going to be singing Cole Porter before you know it.
Yeah, well, we got a lot of. Now you're really getting ahead.
Yeah.
So, he's got the monster doing tricks for Waldman.
Well, tricks, I think, is sort of underplaying it a little bit.
Oh, I didn't mean to... Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply the movie shows him doing tricks.
No. But I think just referring to it as tricks is that he is only a few days old after all.
That's true.
So he's learning rudimentary language, rudimentary commands.
I guess
it's like teaching your dog to sit. That's one of the first things you do,
right?
When you have a puppy,
right?
So it's not necessarily tricks; it's just the comprehension,
understanding, which brings you past galvanism.
It does.
Which is twitching,
basically muscles twitching to the electricity.
And even walking might be some sort of rudimentary. I don't know. Walking takes you a while. I remember that. I remember those days
when you couldn't walk, or when
children. I remember those days. Yeah, when the kids couldn't walk. Yeah, it's a pretty big moment.
It is. I just think Tricks kind of downplays it a little bit.
It does. The only point I was trying to make is from Waldman's perspective, it's the same.
Basically, yeah.
Waldman's like, I don't care if he can
You can
sit.
sit. Yeah, this is still way wrong.
This is a monster, and it will destroy you.
Yes.
So now you're going to show me. Oh yeah, you're going to show me that he can destroy.
Yeah.
That he's even worse than I thought. If
Yeah.
anything, it's worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we'll see in the next few minutes. Yeah.
It doesn't take long.
No, it doesn't take much. Well, that points back to then what happened in those previous 2 days.
Yeah.
What has Fritz been doing to him? What has
I
Henry?
have more to say about
I
that.
do
when we
too.
get
Wait.
there, but yeah.
Point I will make, though, that ties that in, is that in the Flory script, Henry is the one beating the shit out of the monster, tormenting him, whipping him. The first time you see him is basically the scene that comes later in the cellar.
Okay.
But it's Henry not only whipping him, but shoving hot pokers at him. Like, I'll show you who's boss, you'll fear me. It's most unpleasant.
What it shows probably is a difference in how we look at how we treat animals. I would think.
Well, I think there's that. Yeah,
That's the metaphor that he's probably
Right.
going for. Is for number one, Flory's trying to show this is an awful thing. I'm assuming he's not showing that because it's great.
right. No, well, I can't tell.
Really?
I
It's a
can't
little
tell. It's
sadistic,
a little. Yeah, I can't really tell.
Boy, that would have been a bad movie.
Yeah,
But-
again, it goes back to the monster having no humanity in it at all.
Just looking at Rue Morgue, there's some sadistic stuff in there that's
There's some
brilliant.
really-
And I almost want to say beautiful. And it's really
Ask
awful
Arlene
and horrible.
Francis how beautiful it
I mean,
was.
it's
But
awful and very skillful, skillfully executed. So there could be something to that. But I think the point you're trying to make here is Henry's definitely not going that approach.
No.
He's a little bit more gentle.
he's patient. He's
He's not only patient. That's interesting. You use that word. He said to Waldman a few minutes ago, patience.
Yeah,
He's really a changed guy.
yeah.
You might think he's finished what he was doing. I got work here to do.
Yeah, I've got to experiment further.
Mhm.
It's just the beginning, like we said.
And he says, this is where he says, watch.
Watch.
And he exposes him to the light.
Yeah, this is a
that's-
very famous scene.
Yes. Even to, so here's the thing. If I'm in a Facebook chat or whatever with
Right.
somebody and I search the GIFs
Yeah.
for Frankenstein,
Oh yeah, this comes
this
up.
is it.
Yeah.
It's this, and it's interesting to me because I don't know who made it or why it's the first
So
result. I assume
pervasive,
a lot
yeah.
of people use it, and it's
It's that close up, right? As
Yeah.
he turns to look up at
as
the
he's
light.
it's starting to turn to look up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that maybe I'm old enough now that it means something that I don't understand.
Maybe it does. I don't know.
But it is iconic.
It is iconic, and it's a beautiful moment. It's again, it shows Karloff at his subtlest.
Mhm.
It's just the slight turn of the head and the casting his eyes up, and those eyes are just huge on his face. And shiny, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's beautifully
And
lit.
Whale
and-
is going to give. I've talked before about how Whale gave Clive plenty of time to
Yeah.
let a scene play out. A few lines I can think of that you could get him out there in a reasonable amount of time, but he doesn't because it works better to.
well,
let
like the
silence play.
crazy am I?
Yeah, all of
It's one of my favorite moments in this film, and he holds the shot
that. hmm
just on Clive.
We're going to watch you do what you do.
Yep,
Yeah.
this is
And
why
he does-
this is what we're paying you for, and he
And-
does it marvelously.
And as we're very much grateful for, doesn't give John Bowles that
no,
shot.
no, yeah,
And I think it is telling that I think we assume that before Clive got off the boat, Whale was going to give that to him because he handpicked him. He
Right.
worked with him before. And
yeah. That's why he was arriving. I
And
believe.
it's interesting that he does this here because I think there's a and I think what's that movie, the Gods and Monsters. Some of this is sort of blown off. That maybe Whale just looked at him as just an ugly monster. Karloff, just look at him. He's just a big ugly monster, and I'm just going to film him, and we're just going to be scared because he's so gross. But it doesn't.
I don't
that
think
way.
the truth holds up to that
Yeah.
because look at this shot, this scene,
Yeah.
this minute doesn't hold up to that.
Yeah. This scene is about an actor giving a performance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And throughout the film, Whale lets him do that.
Mm-hmm.
The scene at the lake with the little girl, he lets him do that.
Yeah.
Every opportunity, he lets Boris have his little moments. It might be different in the sequel. Where
Yeah.
he doesn't quite, that's Pretorius's movie.
Yeah.
Henry doesn't even have a lot to do in Bride.
Yeah, that's true.
It's Pretorius's movie.
Yeah.
But still, Boris has some fabulous moments in that too. The Hermit, which still is a beautiful scene, despite all you can think of is young Frankenstein and Gene Hackman. But it's still a beautifully done scene. It still holds up really well.
I actually showed that to somebody, and I showed the one scene, and then I showed the young Frankenstein scene.
Yeah.
And it's interesting if you're dealing with someone who's not as familiar with it as we are.
Right.
It's not funny anymore. The Gene Hackman scene wasn't funny. I thought,
really?
This is going to be great. We're going to watch this.
To you or to the other person?
To the other person. So yeah, I was like, this is going to be, they're both great scenes.
Yes.
So the first scene will be great and we're talking about Bride, and we're talking about all the sequels.
Well, whatever.
And
you realize it'll be years before we get to that.
I know, that's true. But yeah, it wasn't as funny in direct succession.
Why do you suppose that is?
I think because because it is such a direct parody, and Gene Hackman is an actor you have sympathy for because you love him, because we all love him.
Because it's Gene Hackman.
It's Gene Hackman. That it plays off a little bit more real. I mean, and also I guess the humor of it is sort of broad. It's sort of the start your thumb on fire
maybe. But I know people that haven't seen Bride that find that really funny.
That was me, right? That was my introduction to Frankenstein, was watching it that way. So I had the backwards experience.
Sure.
There's years after I saw Young Frankenstein, many times that I finally saw Bride, and had no idea that it was a direct.
Okay, yeah, I mean it is, yeah.
Hackman's made up to
look
the
like
same.
Everything's
made up to look the same. Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know where we got off on that one, but we were talking about the sympathy for the monster and the way Whale gives Karloff the time
that moment
to do this, and that's just so. That's again, it's the anti-Dracula, because Dracula is not fast-paced. But it doesn't leave that breathing room. It doesn't have standing around.
No, talking. It doesn't have the it. You know, if that's, and I'll probably have to turn in my Monster Kid Club card for saying this. If that's Bela Lugosi's signature performance, I am far from impressed.
Yeah.
To me, the Lugosi shtick doesn't work. When Bela's being Bela, it doesn't. It saves some of those awful Poverty Row movies. If you weren't in them, they would be all but unwatchable.
He can do this with his fingers, but really, so can you.
So can I.
We can all kind of do it.
Yeah. I think in the character parts that he does, Igor, for instance, he's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
He's pretty good in Body Snatcher, I think.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he doesn't have a lot to do.
Yeah.
And Karloff and Henry Daniell act circles around him, but that's not his fault. It's the fault of the story.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but I don't think, the point I was going to, I don't think he could have done this performance.
Yeah. Karloff's bringing what he's bringing to it. And I don't know why. Because one of the things I've read is that he's, at this point, there's some people have said, and maybe May Clark said, that he thought it was going to ruin his career.
Yeah. This is a famous thing where they're watching some dailies or
is that what
a rough cut or something, and he turns to Van Sloan.
And
he's like, I think my career's ruined.
That's right, because Van Sloan responds back and says,
"No, you're made.
This is it. You're made." I can't imagine what he would sound like.
Come up with that Chaska accent.
That Chaska accent. Oh man, we managed to work Chaska in again.
Well, I've got a contract here from the
we got it. All right,
Chamber of Commerce that we have to.
So one of the things. So this is where he says "watch," and then he opens the skylight.
Skylight. That's
the word I actually couldn't think of. I just scribbled up.
I
scribbled sunroof. I couldn't think of what it's called. But what's interesting is that I didn't realize until we started doing this podcast that they're in that same room. I had never put all this together. You've talked about the sheets are on.
The sheets are hanging over. Yeah,
brutally obvious. But I guess I've just always been not paying attention to that part. So I never realized even when they were doing the scene where the creation scene where he spins the wheel and that opens up there. We're doing this all over again right in this room. That's what's happening in this scene. It's sort of obvious, I guess, to most people, but I never thought too much about the background of it. And it's really well executed because
where this is happening, where the monster is sitting in the chair, is just off to the right side of where the couch
I was just going to say,
that Bowles and Elizabeth sit.
And as the skylight opens, I suppose it's a skylight, you watch the sun sort of go down the wall. It's really effective. It's obvious.
Well, and the close-up that you were referring to, that's used as the GIF. The shadow kind of passes over him. Then he turns,
Yeah.
and his face kind of, has, again, it's so subtle. I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah.
His expression changes ever so slightly as he looks up.
Yeah. He's now been on screen for about 2 minutes.
Not even, minute and a half, 2 minutes.
He's completely sympathetic. Okay, so what's happening in this minute is completely symbolic, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that it would play out this way in real life. You wouldn't be like, oh, I really want. Maybe it would, but I really suspect that what is happening here is
This
more
is symbolic. And it's been
reaching to God, reaching to the world, to life, to
the universe, whatever.
Light.
Yeah, it's to light.
Yeah.
It's been written about a lot.
Mhm.
I think May Clark talks about that specific moment quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it is very symbolic. He's reaching up to the heavens or whatever. I think he's trying to understand where and who he is.
Yeah, without saying a word.
Right. Very well done. I also noticed too that when he reaches up, his jacket pulls below his elbows, and there's painted on veins, and there's like little details that till it was Blu-ray, and I think the first time I saw it in a theater, watching the crappy old VHS,
right?
Which I did a few months ago.
Is it just painted on veins, or you did?
I watched the VHS. Yeah, just
how's it look?
Oh, it looks like it was, it was projected onto a bedsheet in broad daylight.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's terrible.
It's terrible.
I think we did talk about this once, but does that have
the sound is all
restored?
hissing? No. This is the
Nothing's
first.
restored?
This is the first one that Universal put out.
Oh,
80 something. It was one of the first VHS tapes I ever bought.
So Maria, that whole scene plays like the edited scene.
Yep.
And is it true? It seems like it's way more menacing.
It seems the end result is a lot more sinister.
I guess we'll talk about that.
Yes.
Not too long from now.
No, but like in the name of God, that line's not in there.
Yeah.
As well. And that's fairly clumsily done.
How is that done again?
There's a jump cut and a thunderclap that kind of obscures the...
Okay. That's right.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
We talked about that months ago.
Yeah. Well, I guess we did because we covered that scene, yeah.
But yeah, I think, some of it I think is Tarloff's own veins, but they've certainly been accentuated with
I suppose
makeup.
That makes sense. That's that's the same as taking Pierce or whoever, I suppose in this case it would be Pierce, taking what you've got and making the best out of it.
Yeah, because they don't look like they're glued on or it looks like makeup, not in a bad way.
Yeah, more like shading than collodion,
right?
Whatever the hell it is. You know what I noticed? I noticed about this is to people like us, weirdos like us, or maybe it's just me. He doesn't look like Boris Karloff. Like when you say Boris Karloff, it's the first thing you think of is the monster.
Right.
But if you watch a bunch of his movies, he really doesn't look like Boris Karloff. I really kind of have to try and square it in my mind. I think this makeup in particular...
So to speak.
Sort of, yeah, that's right. I have to look at it and go, okay, yeah, this is the guy from, say, The Black Cat.
Body Snatcher. Well, I think you look at...
Targets.
Targets. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
If you look at his output from this point on, he's very chameleon-like.
Yeah.
In how he looks.
That's a good point.
I mean, he looks radically different in, say, The Invisible Ray.
Yeah.
Where he's got the black curly hair and the Fu Manchu mustache.
Yeah.
Mask of Fu Manchu, he looks very different.
Okay.
Black Cat, like you say, Body Snatcher, he looks the most Karloff because he doesn't have a whole lot of makeup
That's, I guess, what I'm getting at. There you go. He
looks most like himself.
Like himself. And this doesn't look like that at all to me.
No.
I've reached the point now that the iconic Karloff look to me doesn't look like Boris Karloff.
Well, certainly the bone structure is there. I just did.
That's true.
I did that.
I think it's when he looks up. You get a sort of a different look.
You get a different angle.
Monstrous face.
Features. Yeah. Well, it does point out just how flawless too the makeup is because in later films, you see across the brow line there's this really obvious seam. Yeah. I think from Bride on, Pierce used a rubber piece that was glued on. It wasn't built up every day.
Yeah.
And certainly by the time of Ghost meets the Wolfman, it's very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually those two movies are the worst in terms of the Frankenstein makeup. They look tacky. Yeah. It looks bad.
And luckily,
by the time you get to the House films on Glenn Strange, it looks great.
I was just going to say, you get Glenn Strange and it's going to make a difference.
He looks great in it. I have those two busts.
There again, Boris Karloff. That's who I think of as that's Boris Karloff. And you get
Is
the house.
Glenn Strange?
No.
With the
When you get
mustache
he's
and the
in
gray
it,
hair.
You know, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, again, we'll get there. But then it's him with the monster, which is always fantastic.
It is,
That's
yeah.
what sells House to me.
Oh yeah, that's like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get as close to a perfect Frankenstein film in 1944, that's probably what it'll be.
Well, geez, it's okay. So I could have, when we started this, I think it's in minute 0. You talk about you blew off House of Frankenstein.
Well, I blow them off in that this is the film we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's comparing, Citizen Kane to Caddyshack 2.
Jeez.
But I
So what you're
do
saying is
believe.
you do really like Caddyshack too.
Yes, I do believe. I also said that House was the first film I saw
Yes.
of the cycle,
Yeah.
so I do have an immense affection for it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's, I guess, what I was getting at is
In terms
you
of
seemed embarrassed about that, whereas I look at that and I go,
no,
I love it. It's
Maybe
great.
maybe a
In
little
fact,
bit.
I love a lot of things about it.
House?
I think it'll
Yeah.
be a nice.
Well, that one I think will be
It's such a
fun
great series
because
yeah.
it's like every minute I think you said earlier is
It's like
a
another
different
movie.
movie altogether.
Yeah, that'll
So-
be good. Yeah, that's what you hope for.
Yeah.
I think I got it all.
Okay. Well, I was just going to point out how reactionary and not in a wrong way that Baldwin is.
Okay.
Take care, Frankenstein.
Does he say that?
Shut
here?
the
I have
light.
that for next minute.
Well, he says it here because I wrote it down.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry.
He says, and I just watched it twice while he went
Oh,
to the bathroom.
shoot.
So.
Oh, okay, all right. But yes.
He's like, take care, Frankenstein. And it's just Henry is just sort of leaning in. I'm not sure what he's going to be doing,
yeah.
but he kind of juts in from the left with his hands up.
Yeah.
And Waldman, yells at him and he backs off.
Yeah.
And then, as the monster is enjoying this moment, reaching up for the light.
It's very striking. Waldman.
Shut the light!
Yes.
For Christ's sake, what are you thinking?
What were you thinking? Because what's happened here is Waldman's. It's tempting to think his response is to the monster experiencing the joy of life.
Yeah.
Once that happens, boy, we are in big trouble.
Yeah.
Now you've really
Now
created
you've
a
really
monster.
done it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's awful.
Yeah.
What an asshole. I hope he dies.
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Sorry, Jackson.
Prepare for a spine-tingling, nerve-shattering podcast featuring all your favorite monsters. You won't believe your ears when you listen to Monster Kid Radio. Hear your host, Derek M. Cook, and his ever-rotating stable of guests discuss your favorite classic and sometimes not-so-classic monster movies. Subscribe to Monster Kid Radio through iTunes or Stitcher, or visit monsterkidradio.net before the next weekly episode of Monster Kid Radio. Go through the archives for interviews with Sarah Karloff, Victoria Price, and Joel Hodgson. Listen to discussions about movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Island of Terror, and King Kong. And don't forget convention coverage from Monster Bash and the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. Classic monsters, modern talk, and the head of Rondo Hatton, only on Monster Kid Radio.